Hi everyone, my name is Rinda and welcome to my very new bookish channel. I am really excited to be doing this challenge, this Bingo 2024 challenge. It's from the R Fantasy Reddit thread, and all the information is there. I'm going to put it down below. I'm not going to really talk too much about the rules. The basic rules for this bingo card are just that. Um, you can't repeat any authors, you can't repeat any categories. You can switch out one category from anything that from one of their previous bingo cards. And there are a couple of other things, but yeah, I talk about some of the rules and I talk about the categories as I go through my picks. But I'm really excited to be doing this. Everything that I'm reading in this fantasy genre right now is new. I've always loved the fantasy genre, but I've kind of had a decade long reading slump at this point, and I only started reading again earlier this year. I started rereading my all-time favorite fantasy adventure series, which is Harry Potter. I love that series. Um, and I wanted to kind of cut back on my screen time, so I just got into the flow of reading. And the last 2 weeks of March is when I hit the fifth book, and I love the fifth and seventh books. And I just started reading it at breakneck speed, the way I used to read before. And I just love that experience of feeling immersed and engaged with the book that I was reading, even though I've read Harry Potter so many times, but just the magic that it creates and it's just amazing. And so that kind of put me on this very renewed reading journey now where like just towards the end of March, start of April, I started reading a lot of books. I think I in this month so far I have completed reading at least 14 books, and that's a lot, and that includes three full series, which are trilogies or there's a fourth book in it as well, and there are two duologies and then a few standalones here and there. So I'm really looking forward to connecting more with the reading community as well. And that's another reason why I'm kind of joining this challenge as well. Also, it's nice to have arranged my reading for this year, and also because I was going around, like, there were so many recommendations I was saving. I made my Goodreads account just last month. This is just the first time for a lot of things. I used to read a lot of fiction actually, up to end of my teens, but it's just I've always been an avid reader. I just shifted more towards reading nonfiction books over the past decade or so. And in terms of consuming fiction storytelling, I started watching a lot of shows. So the genres that I love, specifically fantasy, I usually tend to watch TV shows or movies, and there aren't a lot of books that I've read. In the past decade, there are probably the 10 to 12 years I've read four popular like fantasy series, and mostly I didn't enjoy them. There's only one that I really did. Two of them happen to be dystopian. It's not a genre that I particularly like, or I didn't like the books that I read. And the way I came about to read those series was also that they were turned into movies, so I saw the first movie and it piqued my interest, so then I went ahead and read the entire series. So yeah, that's kind of been my story so far, but I've been reading really consistently this past month, and that's what makes me feel confident about hopping on this challenge. Part of this challenge also, like, I think the hero mode is to post reviews on your blog or wherever, just on Goodreads, and also review the books that you are reading. So, yeah, I thought YouTube would be a great space to log my reading journey and also to have really good discussions on the books that I'm reading, on the topics and themes, and just connect with all of you readers out there and have a great, more wholesome reading experience. And yeah, without further ado, let's get started with my picks for this challenge. Okay, so let's get into the first row of this bingo board. The first prompt is first in a series. This is pretty easy. You can really pick anything. A lot of the books that I've picked up are first in the series. But the one I decided to go ahead with for this category is The Cruel Prince. I actually got done reading this month. I love this series. Holly Black's writing is wonderful. She explored a lot of negative emotions, like hatred, power, greed, cruelty, and I love that it was purposeful, with sort of it had a meaningful realization and end of the main character working through these things as well. And I love the fairy realm and world that she created. It was a more traditional one, and I wasn't sure I would like it. This was my second ever fairy realm story that I was reading, but I absolutely loved it. Her prose is really great, and just it was so easy to read, and it also had a lot of like emotional depth to it. So this was a really good read. Apart from this is done, but I was considering reading Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. So the hard mode for this particular category would be that you have to start a series which is more than four books, like more than three books, so four or more. So Assassin's Apprentice is a really long, like I think universe, and there are many trilogies and series within this. I really want to get into it, so I don't know if I will, but I hope I do. So this is my other pick that I'm keeping for this particular category. And then going into alliterative title. So basically, this means the title of the novel should have words that start with the same letter. For the hard mode, it has to be three letters or more have to start with the same. So I'm going ahead with Adventures of Amina Al Sarafi. I've heard a lot of good things about this one. Yeah, and I love adventure as a as a genre and category, so I think this will end up being a lot of fun. I initially wanted to put Siege and Storm and Ruin and Rising from the Shadow and Bones trilogy, because I this is the first series that I read after Harry Potter, which I read this about 4 or 5 years ago after I saw the first season of the show, and I just loved it. And this was the first time I read a fantasy series where I thought, hey, I could actually reread this. So yeah, I'm curious to see now after some time has passed, and also now that I've been reading other books, how I feel about the series. And yeah, just to revisit it, I would like to. Um, and but I don't think I can put this here because there's another book of Leigh Bardugo's that I will be using somewhere else, and I can't reuse authors. So I'm going to keep Adventures of Amin Al Sarafi here. And then Under the Surface. So basically, this is that it can be underground or underwater. I kind of focused on on the underwater theme. If you want to do it in hard mode, at least 50% of the book has to take place underwater. So the two options that I have, which I'm actually looking forward to, The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. I love the cover for this. This one is kind of, she falls into a mystical realm through the water, and it sounds really interesting. So this is one of the options, and then the other option I have is A Letter to the Luminous Deep. So this, it seems to be the main character kind of has a home underwater, it seems, and then there's some correspondence that's going on. I was curious to see how this book would be because I read Divine Rivals, and I loved the kind of magical letter exchanges that they had. And so I was interested to see this concept play out in another book and story, and just how I feel about it. But yeah, the this is the one that I'm going to keep for now for this pick. And when it comes to criminals, I have heard a lot of good things about The Lies of Locke Lamora, and this is the Gentleman Bastard series. I really want to read this. This actually fits into the alliterative titles as well, with the three L's, but I'm going to keep this here. For the hard mode, it should also feature a heist, and this does. It's perfect for this section, and Yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this actually. There's another option that I came across, The Palace Job. So I think this also features a heist. I'm not sure, but this is a more fun, fast pace, and I think it has some degree of like humor as well in this. So this would be an interesting read as well. I'm just keeping this as an option. And but for now, this is the one that I'm setting for this category. And then dreams. Oh gosh, dreams was actually really hard, if I'm being honest, because it's a little tricky. You don't know how exactly you're going to end up. I mean, I actually had, okay, happened to read one book this April, which had some dreams and nightmares in it, but I can't use it here because I'm using that author for another category. So I did come across this book, The Dreams That Lie Beneath by Rebecca Ross, and this seems interesting. I like this. It has dreams in the title. The hard mode for this is that the dreams should not be mystical or magical in quality. They just need to be normal dreams. There's no way to really know or look for. I tried. So I'm keeping this. This may be more mystical in nature, which is okay because I'm not really trying to do the hard mode for everything. If it so happens that I'm able to, cool. But otherwise, this is looks like a good option, and yeah, I'm just gonna leave this here. If I happen to read something else which just has dreams, I'll replace it because I do want to use her as an author somewhere else. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, so going on to the second row now. um, we are at entitled animals, and basically the title of the book has to have a name of an animal. The animals don't need to feature in the book, so it can just be part of the title. The hard mode would be that the animal mentioned is magical in nature. I think it's very easy. There's so many dragon books. I really want to read a lot of dragon books, but I have actually not put down a dragon book here for now. Um, I went through my TBR and the Bear Nightingale. I've come across this a lot, and I am, curious to read it. I'm not sure if I want to start reading this now. I think it's more than a trilogy, or is it just a trilogy? I can't remember. But yeah, this seemed perfect for this. One thing I wanted to ask, if any of you know if you've read this book, does it at all have the character, can she dream of the future or something like that related to dreams? If yes, I might actually consider this as an option for the dreams category. But yeah, I have no way to find out unless I read it. But let me know in case you do know so that I can kind of move it around. But the pick that the one that I want to pick for this category is actually the six Crimson Cranes. This seems like such a good story. I love the cover. I really love the cover. It sounded really interesting. It's related to her brothers, and they've been turned into cranes, I think. It seems a little whimsical and like it's just like it has a magical quality to it, but also seems to be related to family. Um, and it has other elements to it as well. But yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to reading this. So I'm going to keep this as my more set pick for this category. Okay, coming to Bards, this is where my challenge began because River Enchanted is on my list, and it just so happens that it has a bard, and this is also Rebecca Ross. So there are a lot of books that I seem to be wanting to read by Rebecca Ross. I've actually read Divine Rivals, and I'm yet to read Ruthless Vows. Um, she has a very lyrical prose. I really enjoyed her writing, and I just happen to have liked these books as well that I want to read. So this quite perfectly fits here. But because I don't have anything else for the dreams at the moment, I do have some other options for the bards, and one is the Bone Harp. This is actually published this year. So I can't remember what the plot was, but it has a it has a bard who is cursed three times. It's actually a shorter book, if I'm not mistaken. It's under 200 pages. So I remember seeing that. But this could be a good option for like a shorter read for this section. Um, The other is the part about the dragons was mostly true. This is a little bit humorous, and it has a bard in it, or like a storyteller. So the hard mode for this is that the bard has to be the main character. I think this satisfies that as well. I don't know. I was just curious how this would be, but so I've just put it as a pick over here. But the stray spirit, I think this one is the one I feel most drawn to. This is definitely about I'm forgetting the premise, but of the story, but I remember reading it and I loved it. And this cover is so beautiful. I feel very drawn to this. So I think if not for River Enchanted, I will actually end up reading the Stray Spirit. But those are a few other options for you all to consider. And then for prologues and epilogues, I actually struggled with this a little bit because um, I couldn't repeat authors, and then a lot of books I wanted to read, I checked and they didn't have prologues and epilogues. The hard mode is that it should have a prologue and epilogue both, and I just happened to fall across this one. This was just lying in my TBR, and this has a prologue and it has an epilogue. And it's the first book in this series. I think it's a series, not a standalone. But yeah, so I'm just not thinking too much about this one and I'm just going to pick it. Moving on to the next one, self published or indie publisher. Now, I wasn't very clear on how I could find out if it's a self published book or like if it's an indie published book. So I looked at a couple of lists and I was a bit confused, honestly. This was a little hard for me to find something for, but I did come across um, the Empire of Shadows, and this looked it was an indie list, and I think it's published this month, only earlier this month. um and this feels like an Indiana Jones kind of lost city mystery and adventure and fantasy, like with some magical elements to it. So I'm actually yeah, pleasantly surprised to have found this option, and this is most likely what I will try to read. The other option that I had is Ascendant. This was definitely self published, and I think it is still considered as indie published even now. I'm not 100% sure, but I really wanted to read a dragon book, like just a good dragon book that I can fall into and just like and love, and it's well written. This feels like it is all of those things, and it has a lot of things that you would like in a dragon story. It feels like that. So yeah, I might read this, or I will just stick to Empire of Shadows. But these are two options that I found for indie reads. Okay, moving on to Romantasy. I think there are a lot of books in Romantasy, but I actually read the Court of Thorns and Roses trilogy. This is perfect for this category. The only thing is that I may not be able to use this because I have another book of hers for another category. So it would have been good if I could have just left this here. But I do plan to read Half a Soul, which is like a Regency, Regency magical romance. Like it's a cozy romance. So I am looking forward to reading this one as well. And there is another book that, yeah, okay, Dance of Thieves is also a romantasy. I loved the cover of this. I was at the bookstore, this and the Vow of Thieves, it looked so beautiful. I really wanted to read this. I was going to pick it up, but then I found out that it's part of like it's a duology that comes after another trilogy, so it has some recurring characters. I don't know if I would miss aspects of the world building or if it would spoil anything for me, so I'm a little unsure about whether I should read this. So I think, anyway, the safe pick in this category for me would be Half a Soul, though. Yeah, Court of Thorns and Roses, I have read the trilogy, so that's kind of perfect for here. But anyway, I'm going to leave this here. Okay, moving on to the third row. I have not read anything in this Dark Academia category, and so this is completely new for me. I came across A Study in Drowning. I think this fits. It was on a list for this subgenre. I'm not gonna think too much about it, and I just put this down. It looks interesting, the premise, and yeah, I like the cover as well. So I'm curious to try out what a Dark Academia book will be like. Um, Multiple point of view. This is a little daunting because it's usually more high fantasy books or more bigger fantasy books that have multiple point of views. So I actually Priory of the Orange Tree, I've heard a lot of good things about it. This is on my TBR. So I'm going to go ahead with this. But I also had Malice by Josh Quinn. I had put that over here earlier. But then I removed it, but it's also an option. Both of those, this also has four. I think this has four point of views. And Josh Quinn's also had 4 or 5 point of views. So the hard mode for this category is that it should have more than three point of views. So this fits into that. For published in 2024, I just went through my TBR and saw whatever was published here. Tempest of Tea was published in February, I think. So, yeah, I usually don't want to read a vampire romance, so this will be different. I've been avoiding them, not romance, but like anything with vampires. I've just been avoiding them. But this looks interesting, and I've heard a lot of good things about it. So, in the spirit of trying new things, I have put this down. I also noticed that from my list, A Fragile Enchantment was on the list. This is again like a really cozy Regency fantasy romance. So yeah, I have these two options, and I'll see which one I'm in the mood for. If I happen to read both, that's fine. I'll just put one of them on here. And then character with a disability. So I love Leigh Bardugo. Like I loved her Six of Crows trilogy. I even read her King of Scars duology with Nikolai, the other character. Um, but Six of Crows is the only one that I hadn't read at that time, and I'm really looking forward to reading it now. Criminals Heist. This definitely goes into this section as well. But in this, Kaz, the main character, he definitely has a physical disability. I think he had broken his leg, and so he has this limp, and it's very much a part of his character. So the hard mode for this is that the main character should be the one to have a disability. It doesn't have to be a physical disability; it can also be a mental disability. So you can pick accordingly. Published in the 90s. Again, I went through my TBR to see if I've saved anything which is from that era. And I found Stardust by Neil Gaiman. So he's an author that I've seen around quite a lot. Like, I think he's a prominent fantasy author. So I this is a standalone book and it's not that long, which is great. So I can get a sense of his writing style and storytelling style, and just try something of his. And this was published in 1999, so just made the cut. Okay, orcs. Moving on to the what's this? The fourth row. Um, Orcs, trolls, and goblins. Oh my! I would not have expected. I honestly would not have expected for myself to read a book which is featuring orc, trolls, and goblins. Okay, yes, I can. I would have with them being background characters. The hard mode for this is that it has to be the main character. So I wouldn't have imagined myself reading, except I read Legends and Lattes. And this was a very unexpected read. Such a cozy hug of a book. I loved it. It was just so relaxed, easy between the more intense series that I was reading. This was just nice. I didn't have to I wasn't like rushing through it to get to the next part. It was just, I could relax and I could take a break. And it was, yeah, it was really sweet. It was really nice. I loved it. So I've already read this, but it also has the sequel, which is Bookshops and Bone Dust. I am planning on reading that. So yeah, if you've read the first one and you need a book for this category, I think you could just go ahead and read the sequel. And okay, so this is the category that you can swap out for anything from one of the previous bingo cards from the previous years, any other category. So you get to do that once. I did that for the space opera one. I really don't enjoy science fiction, honestly. It's just not my thing. I've tried reading some dystopian book series and I didn't like it that much, and I don't like watching it as much also. I sometimes give it a try, but I tried to look for a space opera. I think Star Wars is the ultimate space opera. um, but I thought, I couldn't find anything that I really liked and wanted to read, so I switched this to Myths and Retellings. And the book that I'd really like to read is Stephen Fry's Mythos. I think this will be really nice because it'll have, I think it has a couple of myths which he's retold, and there's a good sense of humor with it. And I'm curious to see how this is because I've seen a lot of novels on Greek myth retellings, like Circe. So yeah, Madeline, what's her name? I can't remember her last name, but anyway, there are a lot. There are a lot that I have seen. Um, but yeah, I think this is like a soft starter. I haven't read any of those yet. Okay, moving on to Author of Color. This was on my TBR, so I was very happy I got a place to put it. Su Lin Tan, so she's an Asian author and daughter of the Moon Goddess. This is, I think, a duology, not a trilogy, but I'm really looking forward to this. Yeah, I'm excited. I love the cover, it's beautiful. And this is. Yeah. Okay, moving on to survival. This is a pretty open-ended. They have left it pretty open-ended in terms of it could be a competition, surviving high school or whatever. Hunger Game-esque type things. And I think Throne of Glass perfectly fits this. I was thinking about starting this series, and yeah, I think this perfectly fits this category. She's an assassin who then has to get into this competition environment. There are 23 other competitors, and it is a fight for survival. The less obvious choice that I had was Poison Study. So I was curious, like this seemed like an interesting book, and I've also heard some good reviews about it. She's trying to survive being poisoned on a day-to-day or regular basis in the premise. So, I mean, this qualifies as a survival category, right? Let me know your thoughts. Does it? Does it not? I think it should. If surviving high school is a category, then um, I think this should be fine. I think the hard mode is that it shouldn't be a pandemic or some kind of like big, um, apocalyptic event for the survival series. Yeah, that's the hard mode. And then judging a book by its cover. So I just went through a list of standalone fantasy books, and I came across this one, an enchantment of ravens, and this just looks so beautiful and magical. I loved it. I just loved it. I felt drawn to it. I don't know what it's about. That's the whole point of this. You shouldn't have read the blurb. I wanted to put Dance of Thieves in here because I'd gone to the bookstore and I picked it up and I loved it, but I did happen to read the blurb. So if I have to go into it completely blind, then I think this one fits. Okay, moving on to the last and final row. Um, the first prompt here is set in a small town, and it perfectly falls with my TBR pick, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I'm actually going to get this book, and yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this. This is something very lighthearted and simple, I think, easy to read, like a cozy fantasy. So I'm looking forward to this. In case you've read this, I just happened to see that she's released another book, A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. I think this would also qualify being set in a small town. So the criteria for this is that it's set in a small town, but it should be in the real world, or like it can be a fictional setting, but set in the real world. It shouldn't be like a fantasy realm or universe or something like that. So that's the I don't know what the hard version of this is, but anyway, this I've not yet read and I need to, but that's another option. I don't think it's the same witch. I think it's a different witch. So I think they're both independent novels, but maybe she's doing like a series of that sort. Okay, so for the five short stories, I think The Tales of Beetle the Bard by J.K. Rowling, this could qualify because the criteria is that you have to read five short stories or novellas. Okay, so initially um, I had selected these novellas based on the books that I was reading. So there was Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson, Code of Frost and Starlight, How the King of Elfheim Learned to Hate Stories. I actually read this one. I'm going to be reading this one. And I wanted to read something by Brandon Sanderson. So this is a short story or novella. Not short story, it's a novella. So these are all novellas. And I've been reading Grace Draven's Wraith King series. So these are some novellas that fall in between. And yeah, I thought that I could do a collection of these five. This is the only section where you can repeat authors, as long as you're not just reading a compilation by one author and then repeating the author. So if it's part of, a part of the five different authors that you're selecting, then it's okay to repeat an author in one of the other categories. So, but I think I'm going to, instead of this, I'm thinking to do I came across the Little Cozy Book by Wingrove. So they have these on the website, they have these flash fictions that they've posted, and it's actually available for free. They've made this anthology of like collection of these short stories, and you could read this book and it's available online, these most of these stories. So it has a collection of 27 stories, so I think you could read just five, but the whole book is about 100 pages, so you can just read the entire collection as well. The other book that I came across is Dreams of Distant Shores. So I just happened to come across this author. There's a book of hers, the Bard of Bone Plains. I think that's the book, and I was considering it for the Bards section because I was looking for some options, some good options. But yeah, this was the author, and I saw some other works of hers, and she's been an author for a while now, and I liked the nature of some of her works and also some of her covers. So this is a collection of short stories. I think it has about five to seven, maybe. Um, and I thought it would be cool to try out her short story writing and storytelling and just see how I like her. So this is one option for short stories, and there are a lot of options here. Okay, Eldritch Creatures. Oh my gosh. These are basically otherworldly creatures, which are, there's no like mortal reasoning to why they are the way they are, and basically they're like an not existential, but like they're a huge threat. So I would not have been able to find a book, or I would have dreaded this category, but it's funny that I've actually read a book that fulfills this criteria. I'm so happy because I don't really like reading very dark things. And this is the second book in the Wraith King series by Grace Draven. The first book is Radiance. It's amazing. I fell in love with the first book for the romance of it. It's honestly so different. Her dialogue is great. Her relationship building is so great, and like I love her prose, her writing style, and she does a great job of like adding nice sense of humor and just the way she builds the romance. Okay, the first book, I would definitely recommend check out Radiance. It's different, and it's very mature as well in terms of how it's exploring the relationship, so I like that. And Edelon's second book was more plot based, and the plot involves some dark demoniac beings. um and they were from another world, and they had to be sent back, and the way they had to resolve this was not by any human mortal means. So I think this perfectly falls in this category, and I'm quite happy. Okay, moving on to the next one, reference materials. So in terms of reference materials, it's just a book which needs to have some maps or like glossary or like footnotes, things like that. And I went ahead and put down a classic, Hobbit. I think this one, yeah, I've been meaning to, read. I haven't read Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings and Hobbit. I've watched it many times, but I have not read it still. I don't know if I will read Lord of the Rings. I'm just not sure. I haven't read very classic high fantasy books. Um, but yeah, let's see how these reading journey my reading journey goes. But I think Hobbit is not too long, and I had started reading it once. I didn't read much, and I stopped. But I think this is a good opportunity to read this one. And then book club or read along. So basically, you need to have it can be a book that you pick up, either they're currently reading them, or it's part of the book club from the previous years as well. So they have an entire list. You can check it out in the link that I've shared below. And so I went through the list, and it was perfect because I came across a book I've been meaning to read, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This is another cozy fantasy, and I'm super excited to read this. So this concludes my entire list for the 2024 Bingo Fantasy Challenge. I am super excited and really looking forward to it, honestly. And I'm pretty happy with this. We'll see how this evolves as we move forward. This is a whole year to go, but yeah, I think it's a good start, and I'm excited about the picks that I have over here. So that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, and if you'd like to follow along my reading journey and more of my reviews on a lot of these books that I'll be reading, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you.